The afternoon sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the parking lot of Miller's Family Restaurant in shades of amber and gold, when Sarah Chen walked through the door with her two children holding tight to her hands. She was 34 years. Old but looked older the way hardship ages people before their time. Her clothes were clean but worn, her shoes had been repaired more times than she could count, and her eyes held that particular kind of exhaustion that comes from worrying about every single dollar. Little Michael was 6, and Emma was 4, and they had not eaten since breakfast. It had been nothing more than the last of a box of cereal split between them with water because the milk had run out 2 days ago. Sarah had been driving for 3 days straight from Ohio to California, where her sister lived, and had promised to help her get back on her feet. The car had finally died just outside this small Desada town, and the mechanic said it would cost $800 to fix. $800 might as well have been $8 million. She had $43 to her name and 2 hungry children who kept asking when they could eat. Sarah stood in the entrance of the restaurant for a long moment, in the smell of hamburgers and French fries, and trying to gather her courage. Pride is a funny thing. It keeps us standing tall when we want to collapse, but it also keeps us from asking for help. When we desperately needed she had never begged. In her life had always worked hard and paid her own way. But watching Michael's face press against the window, looking at the pictures of food on the menu, bored, something inside her broke open. Her children were hungry, and that was more important than pride. She walked up to the counter where a man in his 50s wearing a manager's name tag that said Dale was reviewing some paperwork. "Excuse me, sir," Sarah said softly. "I am so sorry to bother you, but I was wondering if there might be any way my children could have something to eat." Dale looked up at her, his eyes cold. "This is a restaurant, not a charity," he said sharply. "You want food, you pay for it like everyone else." Sarah felt her face flush, but pressed on. "I understand that, sir, and I would not ask, except my car broke down and these babies have not eaten since this morning. I have $40 I could give you, and I could wash dishes or clean or whatever you need." "We do not need any help," Dale said, his voice rising, "and we do not give out free food now. I am going to have to ask you to leave." The restaurant had gone quiet. Other customers were watching now, some uncomfortable, some curious. Sarah felt tears burning in her eyes, but she tried one more time. "Please. Sir, they are just children. They are so hungry." Dale came around the counter and grabbed her arm. "I said, get out. Hist, you and your kids. We do not want your kind here." His grip was hard enough to hurt, and Sarah cried out. Michael started crying, and Emma clung to her mother's leg. At that moment the door opened and 6 men walked in. They were big men wearing leather vests covered in patches, their boots heavy on the floor, their presence filling the whole restaurant. They were bikers. And they looked exactly like the kind of people most folks would cross the street to avoid. The leader was a man in his late 50s with a gray beard and eyes that had seen more of life than most people could imagine. His name was Frank Williams, and he was a Vietnam veteran who had come home from the war with wounds both visible and invisible. He had found healing and purpose in riding with his brothers, helping people when they could, living by a code of honor most people would never understand. Frank took one look at the scene unfolding, and his jaw tightened. "Hey, Dale," he said, his voice calm, but carrying weight. "Why do you not let go of that lady?" Dale released Sarah's arm quickly. "Frank, these people were just leaving," he said, trying to sound authoritative, but his voice wavered. "Looked to me like you were putting hands on a woman," Frank said, walking closer. "We frown on that kind of behavior." The other bikers spread out, forming a loose circle. They did not touch anyone, did not threaten anyone, but their presence said everything that needed saying. "She was begging for free food," Dale said defensively. "I run a business here. I cannot just give things away." Frank looked at Sarah and her children. He saw everything. In that one glance, the fear, the exhaustion, the desperation of a mother trying to feed her babies. He had daughters of his own and grandchildren. "To how much would it cost to feed these folks?" Frank asked. "That is not the point," Dale started too. Say asterisk how much, Frank repeated, and something in his tone made Dale swallow hard. Asterisk. Maybe $25 for the kids and her? Frank pulled out his wallet and placed 5 $20 bills on the counter. There is $100, he said. Feed them, and feed them well, and keep the change. Then he turned to his brother's boys. I think we are all hungry today. Let us sit down and have ourselves a nice long meal. Asterisk. The 6 bikers settled into the largest booth right next to where Sarah and her children sat. Frank smiled at Sarah gently. Ma'am, why do you not order whatever your kids want and get yourself something good till you look like you could use a decent meal? Sarah could not speak. Tears were streaming down her face, but she nodded. Dale stood behind the counter, his face red. Frank, you do not need to asterisk. Oh, but I do, Frank said, you see. Dale, my mama always taught me that you judge a society by how it treats its most vulnerable, and right here, right now, I am watching. You treat a desperate mother and her babies like trash, so yeah. I need to make sure they get fed, and I need to make sure you understand that this behavior is not okay, asterisk, one of the other bikers. Big Mike spoke up. Asterisk, you know, Dale, I have been coming to this restaurant for 15 years, been bringing my family here, telling people this is a good place, but I gotta tell you, I am not sure I can do that anymore after what I just saw, asterisk. Another biker named Charlie chimed in, asterisk. Same here, man. I thought this was a family place. Guess I was wrong. Dale was sweating now. The bikers were not threatening him, but they did not need to asterisk. They were customers, lots of customers who spent money and brought others customers he could not afford to lose. Look, I was just trying to start at asterisk, save it, Frank said. Just bring the lady and her kids their food and make sure it is good. Asterisk. Sarah ordered chicken tenders and fries for the children, and a sandwich for herself, asterisk, while they waited. Frank talked to her gently, drawing out her story, asterisk. She told him about the abusive husband. She had finally found the courage to leave, about the long drive to her sister's, about the car breaking down, about the fear of being stranded with no money and no way forward, asterisk. You are brave, Frank said simply. It takes real courage to leave a bad situation to protect your kids, to keep going, even when everything falls apart. Asterisk. I do not feel brave, Sarah whispered. I feel like I am failing them. Asterisk. You are not failing anybody big. Mike said you are surviving, and that is what matters. Asterisk. When the food came, Michael and Emma ate like they had never seen food before. Asterisk. Sarah watched them with tears in her eyes, trying to take small bites of her own sandwich, but her throat kept closing up with emotion, asterisk. Frank and his brothers ordered their own meals, and they all ate together, asterisk. They told stories about their rides, about places they had been, asterisk. They made the children laugh with silly jokes. They treated Sarah not with pity, but with respect, like she was a person who mattered, asterisk. After the meal, Frank walked Sarah out to the parking lot, asterisk. Where is your car? He asked, asterisk. She pointed to the old sedan sitting in the mechanic's shop across the street, asterisk. Mechanic says it needs $800 worth of work. She said hopelessly, I do not have it. I do not know what to do. Frank nodded. Give me a minute, asterisk. He walked back inside and spoke to his brothers, asterisk. Then all 6 of them crossed the street to the mechanic's shop, asterisk. 20 minutes later, Frank came back. Asterisk. Car will be ready tomorrow morning. He said, all fixed and good to go. Sarah stared at him. But I cannot pay, asterisk. Already taken care of, Frank said, my brothers. And I pooled our money. We got it covered. Asterisk. I cannot accept that. Sarah said, even as her heart was breaking because she desperately needed to accept it. It is too much. Frank put his hand on her shoulder gently. Listen to me, Sarah. You got to. Choices here. You can let your pride stop you from accepting help, or you can accept this gift with grace and promise that someday, when you are back on your feet, you will help somebody else who needs it. That is how this works. We take care of each other. But why? Sarah whispered. You do not even know me. I know enough. Frank said, I know you are a mother protecting her kids. I know you are doing your best. I know life has knocked you down, but you are still getting up. That is all I need to know. He pulled a card from his wallet. This is a motel a couple blocks from here. It is run by my friend Betty Teller. Frank sent you. She will give you a room for tonight, no charge, and tomorrow when your car is fixed, you head on to California to your sister and you start fresh. Sarah broke down completely. Then she sobbed in a way She had not let herself sob in months. Asterisk and Frank just stood there, patient and kind, until she was done. Asterisk. Thank you, she finally managed to say. I do not know how to thank you, asterisk. You already did, Frank said. By keeping your kids safe, by asking for help when you needed it, by surviving. You are stronger than you know. Sarah, do not ever forget that, asterisk. That night, Sarah and her children slept in clean sheets, in a warm room with full bellies, asterisk. The next morning, the car was ready, running better than it had in years. Betty, the motel owner, sent them off with a bag of homemade cookies and sandwiches for the road. Frank told me about you, Betty said, hugging. Sarah, you take care of those babies, and remember what he told you. Someday you help somebody else. 5 years later, Sarah was working as a nurse in Los Angeles. She had completed her training with her sister's help and built a good life for her children, asterisk. One day in the emergency room, they brought in a man who had been in a motorcycle accident. Sarah looked at his face and gasped. It was Frank, asterisk. He was unconscious, badly hurt. Sarah held his hand while they worked on him. She stayed with him. When he woke up confused and in pain, asterisk. Frank, she said softly. It is me, Sarah. He helped me 5 years ago in Nevada. Frank's eyes focused on her and he smiled weakly. Sarah, the lady with the hungry kids, asterisk. Yes, she said, tears streaming down her face. You saved us, Frank. You changed our whole lives, asterisk. Just did what was right. Frank whispered, asterisk. And now I am going to do what is right, Sarah said. I am going to take care of you. She did too. She made sure he got the best care, advocated for him with the doctors, visited him every day. Asterisk. When he was released, she helped arrange his rehabilitation. Frank survived and recovered, and the bond between them remained strong. Asterisk. Sarah never forgot what Frank taught her that day in the restaurant parking lot, that we are all connected, that helping each other is not charity, it is humanity, asterisk. That sometimes angels wear leather and ride motorcycles, asterisk. That the smallest act of kindness can change everything, asterisk. Years later, when her own children were grown, Sarah would tell them the story about the day she had nothing left but pride, about the manager who tried to turn her away, asterisk. About the bikers who appeared like guardian angels, asterisk. About the lesson that mercy and compassion matter more than anything, asterisk. Never judge people by how they look, she would say. Judge them by what is in their hearts, asterisk. And her children grew up understanding that true strength is not about how much money you have or how tough you appear, asterisk. It is about standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, about seeing people's humanity even when they are at their lowest, about choosing kindness even when it costs you something, asterisk. Frank Williams never thought of himself as a hero, asterisk. He was just a man who had been broken by war and life, who had found purpose in protecting the vulnerable, who understood that we are all just one bad D.